My clients don't hire me for tactical strategy only. They hire me to be transfigured and initiated. Hi, I'm Naomi Lotayo, and I'm the brand Priestess, and I partner with founders with multi-venture, multi-industry, multi-dimensional visions, and I walk with them to bring it into full materialization, coherence, and alignment with the entire vision that God has given them in clarity and accuracy and, of course, alignment. If you resonate with any of these things that we talk about in this video, make sure to subscribe to my newsletter titled Letters from My Living Room, where I send intimate letters to founders like you on their path to alignment. I guide them and I give them strategy, applicable strategy that they can use in terms of bringing out this entire multi-venture vision. Anyways, now let's get into the video. How I got my name, the brand Priestess. So a little backstory. I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I remember when I was like 6 or 7, someone asked me, what do you want to be when you're older? And I said, I want to be a businesswoman. That's just what I've always known. That's all I've ever known. I remember my first business was called Gifties, where I would sell handmade gifts for people to give to their loved ones. I mean, didn't go that far, but I was committed. However, as I got older, I never like went far from that dream, but I did start to see what success looked like typically for people. And so I ended up trying to pursue things that I guess looked more acceptable. I resisted my own differences. Aside from me being always an entrepreneur and always being very entrepreneurial minded, I always saw the world differently, and I always thought in terms of systems and structures, and it was very different than what I was being led into for me to pursue. Anyways, so I had this vision of what I wanted to be in life and what I wanted to do, which seemed more acceptable, but I could never fully get to that place. I felt like I was always resisted and God always pushed me in a different perspective. I didn't fully commit to the visions that I had. And when I say vision, I mean like my own multi-venture vision, my own different multi-dimensional vision until like fully, like 100% fully until 2024. So in the span of me being 6 years old, knowing that I wanted to start on some kind of path of business, and then to last year, I didn't fully grasp it. And in between, like I've been given visions and understandings of myself and my own, like what my differences meant and why I've been creating systems and strategies and methodologies since I was young, and like where it all fit in, right? It just looked so different. I started off in brand strategy. I was self-taught. I actually started in marketing and teaching myself marketing since I was 14. I've had several blogs throughout my lifetime. I've had several Fiverr accounts in my lifetime. I even did marketing coaching for a little while for those in corporate. But everything that I was receiving just was too different. It just didn't fit into any specific box. And it was hard for me to really just hone in on it because I was in survival mode and I just wanted to make quick money, and I wanted to have the certain privileges that comes with succeeding in this system, and also I just didn't believe I had the capacity to carry it out. And mind you, I didn't have the name The Brand Priestess at that time. I went under a different business name when I started what I'm doing now in 2021 or 2022. Everything that God was leading me to do, like I was using the words brand strategy, I was using the word I'm a businesswoman or whatever, but it just didn't fit in anything. And also with what he was showing me was just odd. Not odd and like it was stupid, but it was just bigger than what I felt like I had the capacity for. It just didn't make sense. And again, I was going by a different name, and I was under the intention or the assumption that I was building something that kind of looked like everyone else's, except I had certain methodologies, I had certain frameworks that were unique to me. Like I created them. Like my name was on it. You can only get it through me. It just didn't fit in how I was trying to move. And so eventually around 2024, I finally decided like, okay, God, I've been trying to take pieces of this vision and the magnitude of it all, and trying to shove it into like this consulting strategy coaching thing. And I don't think it's going to fit in that. So at that point I said, whatever it is, however it is, I'm fully committed to it. And from there, I finally began to see the vision. And again, my multi-venture vision is not just working with founders in strategy. It was always so much deeper than that. I just didn't have the articulation for it because no one else was doing it. And so after fully committing to it, I started to fully see more pieces of my vision. I started to recognize like, oh, okay, what I've been trying to sell to people isn't normal. It's not something common. And also, I'm not selling strategy, I'm selling alignment. And that's where I started to understand like, okay, alignment is what I'm really trying to sell. And I believe this because I have certain principles that I've developed and lived by for my own business and how I see business. And it just kept on spiraling and spiraling until it got to a point where God told me, well, he showed me like, okay, Naomi, you've been picking up different pieces here and there about what you're doing, but what you're doing, you're not a brand strategist at all. This is priestess work. When you typically say that I want to hire a brand strategist, you want somebody who can take your brand and put it into a communicable strategy, and then you can execute that on your own, depending on the strategist. Or if you're on a more corporate level, they're the ones who are holding the brand essence together. So they're touching on marketing, they're touching even on sales, like they're holding it all together. But that's not exactly what I've always done. I've always been very founder centric. Like I was always very much focused on the person giving birth to the vision. And that's why alignment was so important to me, because a lot of times, not a lot of times, the culture, especially for founders, is scale very fast, sell as fast as you can for as much as you can. And it doesn't really give credence to the integrity of the founder, where they are. Also, it doesn't really give much room for the original founder's vision, especially if there are venture capitalists involved. And that was always something very important to me, because I believe that the visions that we were given is from God to us to exemplify on this earth for the betterment of the collective, and to realign ourselves with what's true and what's honorable to all of us, right? And so when it was May 2025, this year, that he told me that you are the brand priestess. And at first I was like, oh, okay. But then he was like, that is your name. That is the name that you're to go by going forward. And if you know anything about me, then you know that naming is important. Naming is very important. So whenever God gives me a name, or whenever I take on a new name, that to me tells me that my function has changed, that my identity has changed, that the ceiling for me has increased, that the realm of my influence, the realm of my domain has expanded. And so when he called me the brand priestess, what he was really saying is that you aren't running a business. You are facilitating an altar, a temple, an atmosphere, and a portal. What he was showing me was that I tried so hard to just box myself in to like traditional strategy, traditional marketing. And I could never fit in there because I was never meant to dominate in those realms. What I was called to was founders specifically. And the thing about working with these founders is that they're not paying me, and they don't come to me because they believe that I'm going to give them the best tagline, or I'm going to be able to condense their brand into a strategy document. They'll come to me because they believe I'm going to make the best logo. They don't come to me for those things. They come to me because of who I am, because of my connection to source, and because of the magnitude of my presence. Since I've started, I've always talked about aligning yourself with who God called you to be and the vision that God has given you to execute. I've always talked about the importance of being self-generative. I've always talked about the importance of making sure that even in your personal life, it aligns with what you're building, because internally, that internal world that you have becomes a foundation for everything that you're building. I've always talked about and preached that you can only create from what you are, meaning your identity is a foundation of all that you can materially build on this planet. And all the people that have, whether it's in business or not, those who have come around me, they have always been rearranged. They have always been transfigured. Like I always joked around and said, like, if you don't want to change who you are, don't be near me, because even just by watching my essence and experiencing me will give you, instill a desire in you to be better, to have better, to grow. I've always said that I'm a mirror. Like once you come into contact with me and you're around me enough, you won't be able to hide from the parts of yourself that you may not like. You won't be able to hide from the versions of you that God is calling you into. And I never had verbiage for that until he said, you're the brand priestess. That's priestess work. You know what I mean? And even when if you've ever watched my videos, or if this is the first one, you might notice yourself being activated. You might feel yourself being rearranged by my words, by my energy. You feel recognized, you feel seen. You're like, oh, you're putting words to something that I've intuitively known, or you're putting words to what I've experienced, but I've never been able to see anywhere else. That's priestess work. I am facilitating a portal through my energy, through my essence, through my words, through my presence for you to step into. This is an invitation to you to step into higher realms and higher identities and higher beings of yourself, so that you can then in turn go out and create what you've been called to create. Coming into contact with me and my work is an access point between heaven and earth, where the veil is thinned, and I'm essentially giving you access to a level of presence of God that you may not be able to find in traditional spaces. But I'm giving you that access so that you can become in contact with a kind of fire that will transfigure you. That is the whole point of everything that I do. And yes, I work with founders, and yes, I work with people with multi-venture visions, and yes, I work with leaders and people with great significance, whether they're celebrities, whether they're church leaders, whether they are a lawyer, it doesn't matter. But they are people with significance, with weight in the collective, and they've been given a vision that is strong and that is generational. And they know that there's a part of them that needs to be awakened within them, or maybe they've even recognized that they've just been asleep. They haven't been able to grasp onto who they are because of self-rejection. Whatever it is, they will not be able to sleep long in my presence. It doesn't matter if you come across my Threads account, if you're watching me here on YouTube, if you just meet me on the street. You can't come into contact with me and leave the same. It's impossible. And a lot of you are the same way. You may not carry the same kind of governance that I do, but a lot of you are the same. If you've dealt with jealousy, if you've noticed that your presence shifts the room, if you've had a lot of evil eye in your life, it's the same thing. There are souls who have incarnated here, and they're extremely catalytic. They are extremely destructive. Not destructive in a bad way, but in a way that it instigates change. Their souls, their presence becomes a catalyst for change. And that's why you've been given this multi-venture vision. You are meant to set the standard and to completely shift the way that we operate in whatever industry, whatever niche that you were called to operate in. And the reason why I also had a vision very similar to all of you with the multi-venture, multi-industry, multi-dimensional kind of vision is because I was meant to partner with you. So even in my own story, it's not impersonal to me. It's something that I live every day. I'm actively building my own ecosystem, my own universe, as I like to call it. It's a mirror, and that's why my work is so effective with founders. And so as God was revealing to me more about who I am, being the brand priestess, I had to really double down and recognize that I'm never going to be selling strategy. What I'm selling is access. And not even what I'm selling, but what I am making available. Because I don't believe this is a transaction. It's covenant. It's covenant. I know that those who have been called to work with me, specifically one-on-one, that we have been destined, or we have been ordained to come together in agreement of a covenant. And what that means is that you're not just going to give me money in exchange for something. It is not a something. Yes, there are tangibilities in my work that you'll leave with, but what really happens is like an intertanglingness of our destinies, our purpose, and our souls. And your vision becomes my vision. Your purpose becomes my purpose. Your growth becomes my growth. It becomes a mirror effect. It comes to the point where the success and the full materialization in alignment with what God, in full materialization of what God has given you, that vision becomes mine. It becomes my responsibility too. I take it on in my essence, in my being, and I also gestate it, and I also incubate it, and I also work to bring it into materialization. Except on my end, I'm not going to be the one with the responsibility of governing and maintaining it, but my job is to bring some of the first signs of materialization through strategy, through articulation, through architecture, also through the initiation that I usher you in just by being in relation to me. That's why I always say your payment is an offering. This is a temple. What you're experiencing in my YouTube channel, what you're experiencing in my world is a temple. This is holy ground. And I don't mean that in a religious sense per se, but what I mean it is that everything untrue, everything misaligned, everything out of integrity has to go. And so when you come across my YouTube channel, when you see me, just know that this is God letting you know that the time is now, that the life of misalignment that you've been living ends in the moment that you first perceived me. It ends in that exact moment. The visions that you were given, the ideas that you've been given, it is ahead of its time. I work with powerful leaders, founders, whoever they are, with those multi-venture visions. And I use the word multi-venture vision, but what I really am saying is that the visions that you were given are the blueprints for the world after capitalism, after religion, after patriarchy, and after racism. And that may seem far away, but the reason why your visions just seem so like random and like out there, or maybe just kind of hard to conceptualize and communicate, is because it's new. It's because it's literally ground zero for this new world that we're stepping into. And it feels far away because you're building for the future. Although you're building now, we won't reap the full benefits of it until generations pass. But it's being built in your lifetime. Don't get me wrong, it's being built in your lifetime. There's a level of authority that has been bestowed upon you. And you know that because you're here. It's not about leadership, it's not about influence, it's about governance. It's about the realms and the industries and the domains that you've been called to govern, that you've been called to set the tone for. You are the blueprint and others will follow suit. You set the standard of leadership, you set the standard of creativity, you set the standard of excellence. You are the standard of God. And it is through your alignment with Him that you are able to exemplify that in all that you do, in every industry that your ecosystem, brand universe, vision touches. That is your role and call. And in partnering with me, I make sure with everything in me, in more ways than I could even articulate right now, that what you're building is in alignment with what God has given you, and that you are fully initiated and have the full capacity to not just build it, but lead it and pass it on for generations to come. That is why God named me the Brand Priestess. Anyways, I thank you for sitting through this video. I know that this is something that will confirm to you who I am to you. If you're here, it's not for a frivolous reason. There's a reason. And I'm excited to get to know you, and I'm excited to meet you and understand more of how I can fit in with this multi-venture, multi-dimensional, multi-industry vision that you've been holding and gestating for so long. If this video has activated anything within you, make sure to click the link down below to join my newsletter, Letters from My Living Room. That is the sacred chamber that founders just like you with multi-venture visions go to join, to be guided, to be directed, and to receive strategy to begin externalizing this vision from their spirit and into the physical world. Anyways, I thank you for stopping by, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.